This is the revision video for Unit B1, the nervous system. You and all living things need to be able to respond to changes in the environment. This is what the nervous system allows us to do. These changes in the environment are called stimuli. If you could not detect and respond to stimuli, you would not be able to react to what is going off around you, and this could potentially put you in danger. There are two main parts to the nervous system: the central nervous system, or CNS, which comprises the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system, which comprises all the nerves taking information from sense organs to the central nervous system, and also all the nerves that go from the central nervous system to effector organs. The key to being able to respond to external stimuli are receptors. Receptors are special cells that are adapted to detect different stimuli. The table shows us the different sense organs that detect external stimuli and what those receptors actually detect. Receptors in the skin send information to the central nervous system about pressure, touch, temperature and pain. Receptors in the tongue detect different chemicals in our food which allow us to taste. Receptors in the nose detect different chemicals in the air that allow us to smell. Receptors in our eyes are sensitive to light, and this allows us to see. And receptors in the ears allow us to hear and are also responsible for balance. Information from these receptors passes as electrical impulses along nerve cells called neurons to the central nervous system. The brain is responsible for coordinating a response to the information it receives. Some responses are voluntary, so they are consciously controlled by the brain. You decide how you are going to respond. This pathway shows us what happens in this situation. When a receptor is triggered by a stimulus, an electrical impulse travels along a sensory neuron to the central nervous system. This is sometimes called the coordinator, as it coordinates your response. Once you have decided what action to take, the brain sends another electrical impulse along a motor neuron to the effector organ. The effector organ is what carries out the response, and will either be a muscle to make you move, or a gland which will release a hormone. Sometimes you respond to situations without thinking about it. It is not a conscious decision. It could be that a situation is potentially dangerous and you need to respond quickly before you get hurt. There is no time to think, so your brain does not need to be involved. Instead, the response is coordinated by the other part of the central nervous system, the spinal cord. These responses are called reflex actions. Reflexes are fast, automatic responses. Each reflex follows the pathway shown, which is known as the reflex arc. Just like before, it begins with a receptor, which then triggers an electrical impulse that travels along a sensory neuron. But this time, there is a relay neuron in the spinal cord that is already pre-wired, if you like, to send the signal to the motor neuron and then to the effector organ. All this happens very quickly and without you having to think about what you are doing. Neurons are adapted to do their job because they are long and have an insulating sheath around them. They also have branched endings to connect with other neurons. This diagram shows us a motor neuron. Motor neurons carry nerve impulses from the brain to muscles and glands. They have special adaptations to carry out their function. Their long shape allows them to make connections from one part of the body to another. They have an insulating sheath which speeds up how fast the electrical impulses travel. And they have a lot of branched endings known as dendrites, which allow one single motor neuron to collect with lots of muscle fibres in an effector organ. Neurons do not connect directly to one another. Between them there are gaps called synapses, shown in the diagram. Electrical impulses cannot travel across these gaps, so instead chemicals are used to send the signals across the synapse. When an electrical impulse reaches a synapse at the end of a neuron, it triggers the release of a chemical called neurotransmitter. The neurotransmitter then diffuses across the synapse and joins with receptor molecules on the cell membrane of the next neuron. When the neurotransmitter binds with the receptors, it triggers an electrical impulse in that neuron and the message continues on its way.